I hope everyone is having a good time, good sessions in the morning, good learning, good networking, right? So today, I and my colleague Hari, we're going to talk to you about how did Bayer and ZS collaborated together to create global customer behavior changing, personalized customer engagements at scale. And that's the focus of our discussion today morning. I think some of us did hear from Justin today in the morning that they've been implementing next best action, and it's been quite successful. So we'll probably talk about some of those war stories when we did the engagement together. So on the stage, maybe I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Aditya Dhingra. I'm a principal in ZS Associates and look and work after the digital and technology business for our pharma and medtech clients. With me on this stage here is my colleague, Hari. He's a business capability leader in Bayer Pharmaceuticals, been one of the leaders who's been driving these flagship programs, with us together. So it's been a great pleasure to be talking to you today about some of our experiences. All right. So I don't think so I need to preach to the choir, but I just take a few minutes to just talk about it. I think our industry today is at crossroads. There are a lot of external and internal drivers that are affecting the investor confidence, the profitable growth for pharma companies. We have all heard about the IRA Act, the European Union Legislation Act, which requires pharma companies to store data for about 7.5 years, and there's an additional market data protection of 2 years. There's an increased ask by the EU states to get more data on the clinical analysis. So what does it mean for pharma companies? It means that 40% of the pharma companies will really need to, or 40% of their annual revenues, they will have to readjust, they'll have to look for more sources, they'll have to go for more commercial models. And essentially, for our teams, for commercial teams, macro launches, I think, are out of the window. We're probably going to have almost 85% to the tune of nano launches and micro launches for any new prescriptions, any new drugs that are going to be launched in the market. Now, we did hear about data deluge, but I'll just now quickly put on the physician aspect. Andrew today was talking about in the morning from NHS how he does get bombarded with a lot of emails and content and all of that. Right? I think the physicians today are under a lot of pressure because they want to stay on top of all the materials, from different sources, and it's in different formats. And the physicians today, in general, have a lack of trust in what the sales reps provide them with, or in general, the data and the marketing material. And so this is the irony of our industry today, right? What do we do? And physicians also want a higher customer experience. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can probably see numbers like 19% and 81%. I think just to explain that the derived attributes of a product is roughly 19%, which means beyond the product, almost a whopping 81% of customer experience is driven by non-product factors. How do you engage with your HCPs during the clinical trials, the digital engagement, so on and so forth factors, right? So there's a lot of emphasis now on the customer experience these days. And now we looked at the physician side, and there is a sales rep side. The sales reps today are feeling overwhelmed. They're undervalued at times because they have to juggle between the physician needs and their job responsibilities, right? But don't get me wrong, the value of an in-person sales rep is definitely in, because it's going to be determined by what they hear and not what they say. They are focused on patient, not on the product. Basically, overall focus on the process and not on the prescription, right? And I think when Bayer was in this kind of a state about 3 or 4 years back, and they wanted to codify their best practices for HCPs and reps, and they started a digital transformation journey. I remember, Hari, and then ZS worked with Bayer. We had a great opportunity to work with Bayer to define what we call as the next best action and reinvent their customer vision journey. So, Hari, you have been leading a lot of these war stories. I'm going to pass it over to you to talk some of them, and then we'll take it forward from there.
Thanks, Adi. Hello everyone. As I took up my role in Bayer, that was around 4 years back, Bayer was actually going through a digital transformation journey. The primary objective for them was to provide outstanding customer experience, similar to how we as a consumer, right, we would expect in our everyday lives. There were some key outcomes that were defined. Primarily, how can we have an impact through improved customer experience? How can we expect additional sales uplift? We targeted somewhere around 5 to 6% of sales uplift. We wanted to make sure that we can target at least 75% of our customer base with the new ways of working, and also create a culture of innovation and experimentation in our group. Now, what this means? This means uplifting our team, as well as upskilling them, as well as uplifting our infrastructure, right, tech. And thanks to my friend Bernhard, I think we have a very good data and analytics platform that we needed to actually make this happen. Of course, in line with our dashboards that can help with real-time insights and improvement. There was a need for tailoring and creating an omni-channel journeys, customer journeys with tailored content that can actually be pushed and the markets can enable them. And all of this in an agile mindset in terms of how we could actually innovate and work faster. And finally, my remit, where we want to bring all of this together into one vehicle that can actually enable our field force to execute things faster, which we were calling it as next best action, or the suggestion engine or a recommendation engine that can actually provide the omni-channel customer journeys to the field force, both for commercial and medical teams, to target the right customer at the right time with the right content. In that journey, we partnered with GS, leveraging their Zyden platform, and we enabled it. And of course, not everything is as easy as how we start, how we look at it, right? One of the key challenges when we looked at it, the journey at Bayer, probably the same that you would resonate. The local markets, most of the AI initiatives are at a local pilot level, and they do very successfully a local pilot. It is always very difficult to scale that pilot from one market to the other. So that was my first challenge that we were facing. How do we efficiently scale and put time to market as one of the pieces and make sure that everyone gets this across board? And that was a global ask from everyone. The second challenge was convincing every market, right? So every market is very unique. They have their own needs. They have their own personalized needs that they wanted to. And convincing every market to adopt to a global solution, but still make them feel like, okay, this is my solution. My local needs are met, and how I can move forward with that. Last but not least, like next best action, right? So it has initial excitement with our field force, but once that initial excitement is over, it is very difficult to keep them active, keep them adopting the pieces. So there is a level of innovation and experimentation that we had to plan out so that we can keep the excitement and we can keep the modification there. Now, how did we do it? If you look at this timeline slide, I think me and Adi probably started at the same time in our new roles. We had quite a long journey, and also it brings in good memories. Of course, the bad ones as well.
No pressure, Hari.
So maybe I'd ask Adi, maybe what was your outstanding experience that you could share in the past 4 years, how we reached here, and your thoughts.
All right, perfect. No, thanks, Adi. Thanks for asking the question. I think my memories are pretty vivid. We started our journey during the COVID time, so that itself, put us back because we wanted to do some in-person workshops with the clients across different markets and to build that connect, but it was not possible. So I think that kind of put us back, but I think we had to go back to basics. And the basics are pretty simple. Put your customer at the center of every decision you take. So I'll probably go into the slide, and I think the first phase was more about the MVP. And I think this is where we put a lot of thoughts and analysis on to what is going to be a pilot market, what's the scope, is it measurable, can you define some key outcomes like an uplift in the sales or uplift in a customer engagement, some of these things were so important. And I think we spent some good time about that. The second thing that I think, Hari, I clearly recollect was we looked at our list of business use cases. We had to prioritize a lot of these use cases that were really forward-looking. Just to give you an example, I was just only smiling in the morning when Andrew was talking about the NHS cardiologist, that he gets bombarded with a lot of this material at 9 o'clock in the morning. And one of the fundamental use cases we were looking at that time, when we were launching this program, was what's the best time to call, for a rep to meet a physician. Is it like on a Thursday morning, or is it like on a Friday afternoon between 2 to 3? And maybe, looking at all the insights that we get from data in terms of their preferences for, certain material. Do they prefer efficacy, or do they prefer safety, or is it, what kind of open rates and click rates they have? So I think those were some of the thoughts, Hari, that were going in our heads. And finally, I would probably say, when programs like these are launched, it's not just about that particular team. I remember, getting the whole data foundation right. You mentioned that in the morning was such an important thing. And so working with the cross-functional teams in a seamless manner is also one of my very, very vivid memories, right? Okay. So Hari, I'm going to ask a couple of questions to you as well. I am like presenting one side of the story, but being in Bayer, leading such a flagship program with such an enterprise-wide impact, the so-called impact that everyone was looking for, right? How are the things on the internal side for you, right? Internal selling, we all know it requires a lot of change management, communication. What were your mantras of success?
Yeah, I think fair point. So this was a global initiative. That means there was good management commitment, stakeholder commitment, and also we still had to get a buy-in from our markets. That was important. We launched this right now at around 19 markets, almost most of our crucial markets, and around 4,000 to 5,000 reps are using it, and daily we are launching around 5,000 suggestions. But even if there is a push, that doesn't mean that the local markets will use it, right? So one of the key things that we had to ensure was actually talk reality. So start with some simple things and how it would be used. For example, one of the key things was we connected marketing, sales, as well as medical with this initiative. So that was an important piece for the local market to understand how easily we could talk to each other, reduce a lot of blind spots that were happening. That was an important piece there. The second piece was the field force, especially our key account managers. They were always in a doubtful, okay, am I getting replaced, or am I going to be pushed and asked for information that I have to execute every now and then? We had to keep reiterating that you guys are on the driver's seat. This is just an assistant. This will be an aid to help you. And there were many key examples on how that helped them out in moving their journey forward, but they still make their decisions. They still are in the zone where they can decide where to use it and how to use it, and there is a good adoption that we see in the market. The third piece, as a program, overall, we had to really invest time in terms of how we would measure customer impact and customer experience itself. So that was also a key point, because we didn't want to mention here and there, hey, data platform is giving this impact, suggestion engine is giving this impact, reporting is giving this impact. We made a holistic outlook in terms of how we could actually measure customer impact. And I must also say, last but not least, we had a good partnership with ZS and good delivery management. So that ensured that certain commitments, and be it right time to delivery or moving to certain markets, and also meeting some commitments, that was actually very important as well. So I think overall it became successful.
All right. Thanks, Hari. So Hari, I think you mentioned today we are generating close to 5,000 to 6,000 suggestions, right, per day for our user community, which is reps and MSLs across these markets, 19 markets, close to about 3,000 odd, yeah. I think we have a scale. There's a good adoption rate. We measure the metrics, right? In every program like this, you have to measure the metrics, whatever have been defined. And I think we have reached a scale now. So my question back to you is, what's next? How do you plan to ensure that in our industry, we continuously innovate and continue to generate that excitement amongst our, the reps and the MSS. So what's the plan?
Yeah, I think a great point, because as I mentioned, one of the key things was to sustain the excitement in the field, especially when you have a solution which is a push model, right, where on a daily basis I get X amount of suggestions and I can decide certain things and I cannot. So that became a challenge. Okay, we still have some ideation sessions with the market in terms of what they need and how we could actually move on. One of the key things with leveraging the Gen AI and other technologies, what we look at right now is how can we move from a push model to a pull model, how we can enable voice services, and how we can actually use their requests, get their requests, and make the field force talk to us in a different way. So that we're kind of calling it another experimentation phase in terms of co-pilot initiatives that we are looking at. And on a large scale, I think it took us 5 to 6 months for our first market launch to where we are in an economies of scale. We now need like 2 to 3 weeks to launch in a new market or in a new brand itself. So from a cost and operations wise, we continued to gain efficiencies, and we are able to manage or include more markets as we needed. Beyond that, the learning model of the product, right, that is also very important, because to me, we keep also hearing from markets about how we have improved over time in terms of meeting their needs when they have a feedback about the product, and how they can actually get more and more meaningful recommendations. So all of these are important pieces, and we have made, like, we started crawling and we stood up, we started walking, and maybe we are in a run mode, but there is still a lot more to achieve in this space.
Absolutely. No, Ari, I absolutely like what you said about the voice capability being embedded into the product. I think someone was actually mentioning in the morning in the panel discussion how cool it is. You're a rep, you've just finished a meeting with a physician and you want to write a call note in and just speak into it, or you want some suggestions. Just speak into the app, there it booms back with you with all the details about your targeted HCPs and details of the last conversations with them. And I think we are also looking forward for that. All right, perfect. I think it's been a great journey. I think I want to ask people this question: how many of you have implemented a program like this at scale, right? Because I think the next slide is also going to be about talking to you about scale and how do we achieve scale. So maybe by show of hands, I know Justin was talking about it in the morning today from Genentech. They have implemented a next best action program, but maybe we just hear from the group out here. You have. So not many, right? 3, 4 hands are coming up. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, I think the point about scaling for us is pretty simple. There's a term that they say these days. There are more pilots in the pharma industry today than you have from, say, United or Genentech, or sorry, from Lufthansa, right? So I think the whole emphasis out here is how do you scale a program like this? And 5 things come to my mind. You need to have, and Hari alluded to it, right? You need to have a strong tech foundation. Your hyperscalers, your MLOps system, whatever tech stack that you need in order to generate those insights has to be there. You need to have a strong data foundation. Your engagement data, your PubMed, your Pharma Spectra data, all of that needs to get ingested in whatever system you have, your commercial data warehouse. You should be able to build those data products and analytical-ready data sets that get consumed by a program like this. You need to have some kind of a format that looks at your use cases and their prioritization. And finally, I think you need to focus on the AI, the domain, and the tech. The talent part, the mindset here becomes so important. And then you round it up with the governance. I think governance overall becomes so important in making this program successful. And finally, whatever you do, have those measurable outcomes, whether it's the voice of the customer or the sales uplift or the percentage increase in the approved emails. I think those are the few key aspects that come to our mind when you have to scale a program like this. Yeah. Okay. We do have about a few minutes left in our presentation, so maybe if the group out here has any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer. Yeah. Oh, their number. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question in terms of ownership and accountability. How do you cascade it from region level to affiliate level in terms of team setup? So that the project, once this framework is set up, the continuity and the success is guaranteed.
Yeah, I think what we did was we wanted to make sure the local teams had some level of autonomy in terms of what they decide and what they could do. But that means our framework and governance model had to be set up in the right way. For this product as recommendation engine, individually, we made sure there is a key owner by each market. And the owner also decided how he or she wants to set the teams locally, as well as how they talk to the sales teams and also the medical teams, etc. So we had to build a very good setup in that. And we also had to get initial commitment when we onboarded a market, how we want to do it, because the certain markets where we couldn't get this commitment, we saw that after the initial excitement, this is failing, and we had to redo some of those.
Yeah. I think I'll just add to one more point, Hari, if you're okay. I think getting markets onboarded is easier. Sustaining that excitement is even more challenging, right? So the owners that the teams decided as a SPOC from the market, we continue to interact with them in the post-go live phase as well, and they became the user champions for user training, so on and so forth. And every quarter we would reach out to them for their feedback on what things they want to see differently, how are the reps responding to the suggestions we are having. And I think that constant user education and training and that touch point is so important. Yeah.
Hi. Could you describe briefly what the input parameters or activities are for the engagement recommendation model? And what are some output examples? I mean, is it only for the reps or for marketing automation or both?
Only for the reps or the?
Or marketing automation or both?
Yeah. I think the basis of this engine is all the data that any pharma company has. So your CRM data, your activity engagement data, all your external publications data, so on and so forth. So, that's the basis. The data gets crunched in the engine, and there is a need to then generate the insights, right? So that's how the suggestions get published. So if I'm a rep in the morning, the first thing I get to see out here is, more from a recommendation that the last time I spoke to a physician was on a particular subject, which as a feedback, we didn't get a great response. So maybe the next time to talk to him would be on a Tuesday afternoon between 2 to 3, because that's the most preferable time we have seen, the physician has responded to any material or any discussion that has had from that particular rep. Or it could be other simpler suggestions in terms of, hey, by the way, the consent is expiring, but I am a sales rep, but I'm not able to travel on and meet the physician. But there is an MSL who's been meeting that physician in the last 10 days or 15 days. So maybe to the point that Hari was talking about, it brought the community together. And I reach out to my counterpart in my organization, the MSL, and tell him, next time he's going, maybe he talks about a particular subject or getting that material across or the consent. I think those were some sorts of high-level aspects that come to my mind immediately. I think there were, to Hari's point, we gave a lot of autonomy to our markets to choose the type of suggestions and recommendations. And you also have to decide basis on what are your established brands and what are your upcoming brands, right? Because the reps will have a different mindset for each of that.
Yeah.
Hari, any other point that you want to add?
Maybe I know we are on time, but maybe just 2 points. There was beyond marketing, sales, and medical, we were looking at themes that we could look at holistically. For example, closing the loop. Closing the loop was important for all of them to ensure that we have a clear, very good customer experience. So we looked at that theme. we looked at eliminating blind spots. So that was also important. So likewise, we brought everyone together, and then that developed use cases which needed marketing automation, which needed follow-up with the MSL or follow-up with the Salesforce the key account managers. Yeah.
I think we are almost up on time, Hari. So maybe we continue the discussions with you later on. But thank you so much for your patient hearing, and Hari, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone.